name is Chandler Rodriguez. I am so excited to go through chapter 12 in the Brave Love Manual. Jesus is thrilling, sin is boredom. Honestly, it's one of my favorite chapters to go through because this is the chapter that almost looks at the enemy, serves him notice, and just says, I call you for what you are, you're the biggest liar. The devil always comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and always comes to try to entice us with sin. You see it from the very beginning, right? And so sin always leads down to one path. It's death, destruction, and bondage. It's interesting. You probably see a lot of people who especially don't know Jesus because they look at Jesus and think, oh, okay, with this, I have to follow a set of rules. But what the devil does is he has this lie and it says, okay, actually freedom it means there's no boundaries anywhere. You can make whatever choice you want. But we all know that when we live outside of the design that God has actually made for us, that leads down a path that isn't the best for us. Ultimately, it leads to sin, which is death, destruction, and bondage for our lives. And Jesus, in his mercy, has given us these boundaries because he made us. He knows us, and he knows what's best for us that will bring us life. So ultimately, it's so much fun because obedience to Jesus always brings freedom. And so even as I think about it, I remember when I was in college, and honestly, a bunch of my friends didn't know Jesus, and this one particular friend, she loves Jesus now, but we had this moment before, and we were out, and she kept going out to just different parties, and honestly, she would go to these parties and then she would drink so much because that was enticing to her and she didn't really know truth, and so that was a freedom to her. And so she would get so sick night after night until one night she just had this epiphany. She would just go down this path. There was never a new path she would go down. Sin always was mundane, led down to the same path, and literally one night it was this epiphany that she was like, I'm made for more than this. I am made for more than this. I am made for more than this. And it's true. And I just remember being like, yes, you are made for more than this. The enemy always tries to grab hold of someone, especially if they don't know Jesus, and pull them down this sinful path. And so all of a sudden they're like, this is the same old thing over and over. Actually, I think life has to be more, and there is more, because a life with Jesus is thrilling. A life with Jesus is ultimately joy with abundance of life and just so much adventure and wildness. Jesus always brings freedom to our life. And so we see this day in, day out with the culture of Israel within the story of Deborah. And again, if you haven't gone through the chapter 1 of Who is Deborah, you have to. It's an amazing story that blows my mind. But a little context is that the story of Deborah is that Israel and the book of Judges isn't just a cycle of sin over and over and over. It's almost like they think that sin and worshiping idols and worshiping different gods is going to lead them down a new path, but it never does. Their sin always leads them down to oppression. So that's when you find Deborah. Deborah is just this woman, even in the midst of a culture who is sinning, who has gone against God. She's a woman who's so rooted, so knows who God is, so takes him at his word because she's experienced the abundance life of who God is. She does not move. She's not affected by the sin-ridden culture she's in. She stays so firm. And so what she does is that in the midst of sin, she looks around at Israel and she's like, Israel was never made for this. Israel, this is not their original design. Israel is a promised nation. God loves Israel. And so her heart of compassion, her vision to know people, she knew their original design. That's what led her to rise up, to be this catalyst, to look at Barak and say, we have to free our people. This is not who they were ever designed to be. I look at the life of Deborah and I am so compelled. I'm compelled in two ways. The first way I'm compelled is that Deborah was a woman without compromise, meaning she was a woman without any sin in her life of just crazy compromise that would lead her down to this oppression that it led everybody else in. So as I look at this, it makes me want to look at myself, and I want to ask you the same question. Do you have any compromise in your life that you know is leading you down to a path that it led Israel down to that same path, that is death and destruction and bondage? That you know that it's not all God has for you. And it's because Jesus wants what's best for you, because he loves you, he created you, he knows what you need. And so is there any fear? You're submitting to fear in your life? Is there any outward just compromise? You know outwardly, consciously you are sinning. Is there any silence where you know you're supposed to rise? Is there anger? I just feel like there's just a huge invitation for God to search our hearts and be like, okay, God, like Deborah, I want to be a woman without compromise, so I'm rooted because I know you and I know you have what's best for me. And so when my culture is swaying back and forth, I'm not swaying, and I'm so rooted because I know you and I'm a woman without compromise, and holiness is a priority to me. So one, just no compromise. The second way that the life of Deborah just compels me is this. I love how it says this in the Brave Love Manual. As Deborah, she was compelled by love. It was just so compelled by love. It says, brave love extends its hands to bring real freedom, to help restore people back to the way they were originally created, just how she did that with the nation of Israel. It extends real freedom from the endless cycle of me and replaces it with the wild, waving hair in the wind, freedom to love the unlovable. And it starts with a love revolution. Ladies, I believe as women, we have this unique opportunity to have a love revolution with one another. What would it look like for a person who is stuck in sin, to love the unlovable, who doesn't know Jesus, who doesn't want to know Jesus, but they're hurting and you see hurt? Maybe it's the girl who's in class next to you who shows up and maybe she's done drugs or she has so much anger. It's the person next to you and it's like, I don't know what's going on in their life, but I know that sin is a liar and the devil is a liar, and it always leads down to the same mundane, boring path every time. But what would it look like for us to reach out a hand of love and be like, no matter what, girl, I love you, and I'm going to call you into who you're called to be until you awaken to that, because that is what will truly bring you freedom, is Jesus and Jesus alone. Who are those people in your life that you need to radically love, even if they don't know Jesus? I believe this is an everyday thing, and maybe it's even a big picture call of God over your life, but in the everyday, is it the woman who's sitting on the side of the street who doesn't have a home that you walk by every day? What would it look like to reach out a hand, like it says in here, to reach out a hand that will bring freedom? What would it look like to love someone who has hurt you, you feel betrayed, to love your enemies because they don't know Jesus? What would it to look at them and be Jesus to them? I just believe this could be a love revolution. So ladies, again, these 2 points, I just call you to check your heart. Just as Deborah was a woman banked on holiness and there was no compromise in her life, what would it look like if we were a culture of women that we weren't going to stand for compromise anymore, because we took God at his word and we knew that Jesus always equals freedom? And what would it look like, number 2, if we would be women that we would just almost start this love revolution, that we would see people who were trapped in sin and were trapped with just the mundane, just enticing the devil would try to put on people, but we actually know their original design, just like Deborah knew the original design of Israel. What would it look like for us to love the woman who's sitting on the side of the road, would love the classmate next to us who doesn't know Jesus, love our sorority sister who doesn't know Jesus, who would love a nation who doesn't know Jesus? I just believe that we have a unique opportunity as women to call sin for what it is. It's boring, it's not fun, it's mundane, but then actually look at Jesus and say, no, Jesus is who you are, it's what you call us to be, and I'm going to live this way.